2024. Well, as Fraser was mentioning earlier, the EU is going to be hit with 20% tariffs on top of the 25% on steel and aluminum exports to the US that were announced back in February. Europe now currently working out how it will respond to Trump's tariffs with different options on the table. We're going to talk more about some of those with our international affairs editor, Angela Diffley, who joins me on set. Angela, what does the EU strategy on all of this look like?
Well, the plan is to maintain unity between the 27 EU countries. They saw how well that worked in negotiations over Brexit with Britain. There's complete unity between the 27, despite sometimes their diverging and competing interests. It worked well. That is the plan. There is some unease about the visit next week by Giorgia Meloni, the Italian leader, to Donald Trump. She and he get on well. They like each other. And there is some worry that she might try to cut a separate deal on Italy's interests and shaft the EU, if you like. You know, that said, it should be said, she is a nationalist leader. She is a Eurosceptic. She is not a big fan of the European Union, but she has been quite angry about these tariffs. And she has also said that she would like to avoid a trade war which would weaken the West. She is a big fan of the concept of the West. So it's very likely she will go and try to see if she can improve the situation between the EU and Trump. We will see. Beyond that, the European Union plan, they're deciding today on how to react to that first lot of import taxes. And they're looking at orange juice, motorbikes, yachts. It's quite a small hit back, if you like. They're looking at targeting states which voted for Donald Trump as a strategy. After that, the question is how big to go. Do they go really big and hit US tech companies? And there is some concern within the European Union. You know, they don't want to trigger the entire collapse of the world financial system. That would be even worse. So there's a certain reluctance to go too big so far.
And different EU countries actually have different positions when it comes to this trade war because they're not all going to be impacted the same way.
Yeah, they're not. And France is relatively unimpacted. And Macron managed to make sure that there was no hit back on American bourbon whiskey because he didn't want a retaliation on French wine. France is not the most impacted. And Macron is quite bullish about this. He wants the EU to hit back fairly hard. He already, immediately after the tariffs were announced, asked investors, French investors, but I think he meant all of EU investors, that is tycoons and other entities in the European Union, if you have announced investment in the US, but it has not yet gone ahead, hold off on it until the situation is, as he put it, clarified. That will give the European Union leverage. But Macron is keen on going after big tech. On the other side completely, you have Ireland, again, such a small country within the EU. Ireland is the headquarters, as many people know, of many US tech giants. It's their European headquarters, and Ireland is going to be massively impacted. They do not want to go after big tech. Germany is the obvious country which is going to be hugely impacted. It's already lost a lot of the Chinese market for its cars. Now it looks like it's going to lose a lot of the American market. 13% of American automotives go to the US. It's a huge hit for Germany.
But there are other things that the EU can do to help itself, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, what might happen is, and increasingly this is being explored, you know, the EU, which was encouraged, particularly by the United States, to shut out China in every way and to see China as a foe, the EU might find itself turning towards China under pressure from the way it's being treated by the US, seeking other markets elsewhere, India, Brazil. All of that now is something the EU will be looking at. The other thing is, you know, Trump has been so needlessly rude, really, about countries, and then telling all these Republicans at that meeting last night that people were queuing up to kiss his ass. This kind of thing really doesn't help and doesn't put negotiators in the mind to feel any empathy towards Trump. What they could do, Trump has blurred the lines between the personal and the private, as we know. He also has virtual immunity from anything he does while he is president of the United States, since that law was passed just before he came into office. he might well be bought off by personal sweeteners in many areas, kickbacks. We will give you personally, Donald Trump, this if you ease up on that. Anything's up. The world has changed so dramatically.
It certainly has. Angela, thank you for that. That's France 24's Angela Diffley. Now,